Hello there, World of Tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm, of course, your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, we are going to be doing a live Q&A for the questions, comments, and things you want to know about World of Tanks Blitz, or maybe even me. Obviously, I haven't ever done this on the channel before. I thought this would be a good way to connect with you guys as the community, and as well answer some of the questions you might have lingering in your head. So obviously, if you'd like to see more content like this, make sure to click that notification bell, because you'll be notified when I do make community posts, so you can take part and ask what lingering questions you have in your mind. And as well, make sure to click that subscribe button because, well, gotta stay subscribed to the channel, right? So let's get straight over to my YouTube channel page where we can go over the top questions that YouTube is giving me. First one, do you think Wargaming should reintroduce or occasionally offer collector tanks from the old tech trees? Yes, I do believe that. In fact, tier 6 and up I think should never have been removed from the tech trees. Vehicles like the T-150, the KV-13, the Jumbo Sherman, I don't think those tanks should have ever been removed. They were fun in the tiers they were at. I mean, the Jumbo Sherman was a super cool tank, and I don't know why they removed it. Because, yeah, sure, I guess it may have slowed down a couple people getting up to tier 10, but the T-150 was straight across to the, what is the IS-4 at tier 10. So I don't really understand the reasoning behind that. The lower tiers I understand. They make sense. You know, removing tier 4, tier 3, they want to make it so it's less jumbled to get up to the higher tiers. But once you get up to, like, tier 6, you should probably know about researching and other things like that in the game, so that I don't agree with. However, Wargaming does actually bring them into the game. The KV-13, for example, was sold with season coins points for participating in tournaments. That's actually how I got mine back, because I never actually owned it when Wargaming took it away. So that's how I got my KV-13. Another good example of a way Wargaming introduces collectors back into the game that have been removed are battle passes. Every battle pass, we basically get a removed collector back. This here is the DW2, a perfect example. So Wargaming does bring them back into the game. I mean, we've had the Gargoyle brought back into the game, and it's not an exact replica of a tank we've had removed, but it's basically the 105 on what was the Panzer IV. So it's pretty cool that Wargaming at least gives us a chance to get them back, but unfortunately sometimes they do cost some money. Let's make our way back over to the questions. Series of questions that I'd like to ask. How many are there? Okay, there's 3. So, do you think the value of tank destroyers in the battlefield is less compared to medium tanks? Yes, completely agreed. I don't even need to read the rest. Yeah, tank destroyers, unless you're running a vehicle like a T-110E3, that's really about it. I mean, the Object 263 is great, don't get me wrong, but what's the point of having all this DPM when a heavy tank can just have more hit points than you and possibly bounce shells and just win? I mean, the Badger, it's been a tank that I think needed work for years. There's really only a couple tank destroyers that I think that can outweigh the persona of other classes beating it, and it's really just the Hori, the Object 268, and the E3. And even these tanks, if you're up against a good heavy player, you feel kind of useless. The Foch, it's just terrible. I mean, the gun's inaccurate. The tank, sure, you can get good games out on it, but you got to try so hard when you could just run an E50M or a mobile heavy tank like a 5A, IS-7, WZ-113 and get very similar DPM on the 113. Grill 15, glass cannon, same for the 4005, same for the FE-Tune 5B183. So yeah, I do believe that tank destroyers kind of suck right now, and it shows statistically. The highest performing tank destroyer is the E3, and it's around 54% win rate. And when you compare that to the highest performing heavies that are upwards of 55, 56, and you compare that to the highest performing, what would be medium tanks, vehicles like the Object 907 and T-22, and even STB-1 are sitting upwards of almost 60%. So yeah, tank destroyers, I don't know how Wargaming should rebalance them because they put them in such a bad spot, but they definitely need some sort of rebalance, either nerfing a percentage of all the mediums DPM, or I don't even want to do that because obviously that would hurt the mediums a lot, but yeah, Wargaming definitely needs to give tank destroyers some love, and I think they have to individually buff every single one. Maybe not the 183, but the other ones, yes, definitely I think that they do need some changes. Number 2, do you think there is an unbalance of spawns in certain maps? There are certain maps that I don't like spawns on. A good example one is like Port Bay. You can spawn on one side, and actually I've got strat sketch up, so this will be perfect. Let me just pull up a new slide. We'll name it Port, and oh no, and it went away. Gosh dang it. Port, and close that, create slide. So if we make our way over to where the heck Port Bay would be sitting, On this spawn here, you have a major disadvantage from this spawn, and the reason for that being is because, let's say you're at this base here, and you're in your IS-4, right? You want to get your tank right to this hill, because that's an incredibly powerful spot. So to get there, you drive your vehicle straight along this road, you come here, and then you just drive down. Now, if you're on the enemy team, what you have to do is you normally do this. But it's a much worse way because you're going uphill. And when you go uphill, a lot of times, which I know you guys as well probably know, is enemy mediums will get right over here. And then when you try to get into this spot, the mediums will just start shooting you right here. The enemy side doesn't have that because they are covered by a hill. And for you to get covered by that hill, you got to get over this hill, over this spot to get here. You do lose health a lot of the time, and sometimes it's not even worth it to poke it. Now, I have found a way to counter that. A good way is to go down here and come around and up, but you can see how much more distance you have to cover doing that than what the enemy team has to do. So either way, they have a very, very big advantage. There are a lot of maps that probably have this that aren't coming to mind right now, but another good one would be Castilla, if I can find where the heck that is sitting. I really don't like the way Castilla is formed because on one side, if I'm in a heavy tank, I normally don't push up the hill, for any of you that are wondering, because if there's tank destroyers that sit here or here, they will just farm the living life out of you, as well for mediums that will sit here. So what I usually do is I will drive, at least on this spawn, I will drive right up this hill here. I'm going to climb up this, and there you go. I'm sitting here and I'm trying to farm the heavies along the side. And if anybody tries pushing here or my mediums need help, I can come over and flex and help them. The issue is on the other spawn, you spawn around here and you've got to drive all the way around and all the way over here to get to the same spot. Now, obviously, you can see that this is a big amount of distance compared to just this slight climb here. You have more cover on this spot, as you can use this position here and use the rock. Compared to this side, you got to be a lot more careful. So there are definitely imbalances on spawns. You can also see that mediums have a much quicker time getting up and into position over here. In fact, you can even climb this hill, which makes it much harder for you as a medium to get over this little spot here. Sometimes you'll have somebody waiting for you. Yeah, I definitely think that there are a lot of imbalances on certain maps, but thankfully, they're usually not too game-breaking. If you know how to play your tank, you can still make them, should I say, subdued is a good way to put it as an example. So let's go back to the questions. The final one, is the 5A still your favorite tank? Yes and no. The Progetto 65 is my favorite medium, and the 5A is my favorite heavy. That's how I'd like to say it, because I don't think I have one favorite tank in Tier 10. There's so many different tanks that, yeah, the 5A is my favorite heavy, Progetto is my favorite medium, I would have to say the Batchat's my favorite light. There's so many different classes that I kind of do it just depending on what type of tank class there is. Will Wargaming ever add or change the reporting system in-game to something that actually has purpose? Yeah, I know this kind of sucks, and the issue I have with it is that if somebody tried the troll report, let's say there was a bunch of haters that didn't like me, just as an example, and they troll reported me, well, that could basically get your account banned if a lot of people did it, if they changed the system. I think a better way that should be done is what should happen is when your battle's over and you want to report somebody, when you click the report thing, what should happen is that it should ask you, do you want to submit this replay to Wargaming support? And you click yes. And then instantly, without even making a ticket, it reports it to Wargaming. You maybe have like 5 options to check from: trolling in game, cheating, blah, blah, blah. You send that straight over, and Wargaming didn't deal with the rest. I think that's a much better way to do it, because that way there's somebody checking it. It's not a bot just, after a certain number of clicks, it bans somebody for an hour or so. I think that'd be a way easier way for the system to work, but I doubt Wargaming would ever do something like that. Let's see. A long question, but it does need explaining. Favorite tank of each class from each tier 4 to 10? Oh, gee, that's a lot. I'll do tier 8 to 10. Just because that would be a big question. So obviously 5A for my heavies, and tank destroyers. What would I say is my favorite tank destroyer? That's a really, really good question. Honestly, I'd probably say my T-110E4. It's an interesting tank, and it can do the role of a heavy. It can be a tank destroyer. It's got a big chunky gun. I just think it's a pretty fun vehicle. There's a lot of other tier 10 TDs I like. The 4005 I made a video on yesterday. Ho-Re's just insane, but yeah, E4's definitely taken the cake there. We already went over the heavy, medium, medium, and light tanks, so let's go down to tier 9. Now, when it comes to tier 9 heavy tanks, definitely the Emil 2. I love this tank. Unfortunately, I don't play it anymore because I'm 100 games and 80%, but that's just how I am in Superstition. When we make our way over to tank destroyers, I am 100% saying WZ-111 GFT. I just love this thing so much. I mean, a close second's probably the T-95, but I just love the gun on this tank. Tier 10 tank destroyer gun on a tier 9 TD. Let's see, we go over to mediums, and mediums, as many of you probably know already, it would be the WZ-120. I loved this tank before it got its gun depression buff, and now it got it. Oh my, does it feel incredibly strong. And now we go over to the light tanks, and probably I'd go for the T92E1. I mean, the Vickers CR is just flat out broken, so I don't play it much. And the Batchat, I'd just play the tier 10 Batchat, honestly. So yeah, T92E1's definitely taking the cake there. Finally, at tier 8, we start off with the lights, and obviously, I mean, you gotta go for the T49. I'd say the AMX 1390 comes in a close second, but whatever tanks I play the most, yeah, it's definitely going for the T49. Medium tanks. There are a lot of tier 8 mediums in the game, but this one is definitely my favorite, Skoda T27. A lot of you know I love my STG guard, but yeah, the Skoda, it just feels so nice to be able to get out incredibly high damage clips. In fact, you can see here it's over 660 average damage in a matter of 3 seconds. It just feels great to do that, and of course in Update 8.5, Wargaming is buffing this tank. So yeah, I really like the Skoda. We go our way over to heavy tanks, and ooh, heavies are a big one because there's a lot of tier 8 heavies. I'd probably say it would either be the Emil or the Emil 1951. I just really love autoloaders, and this is the kind of autoloader I love. Autoloaders with turn armor. The big downside for most autoloaders is they don't have the ability to bounce shots. You expose your hull, your turret, you fire, and then you get pens back. 57 heavy, AMX 50B, 4005. I mean, the list goes on and on. This tank and the Emil can just poke, you know, not worried about being penned, and then just back in the cover. It makes them incredibly strong, and that's why I've always loved the Emils and the Swedish autoloading tanks. And finally, we have the tank destroyers at tier 8. Let me go there. What would I say is my favorite tier 8 tank destroyer? That's a really, really tricky one because there's so many at tier 8 as well that are very unique. But if I had to place my paw on anyone, oh yeah, it's going to be the AT-15. There's one reason why I love this tank, and that is because it has 4,000 damage per minute down at tier 8. RHM comes in a close second, but just the ability to just ravage somebody's hit point pool in like 5-6 seconds, even if they shoot you once. Oh no, you shot me for 400. Guess I'll take 1,200 off now. It's just a lovely, lovely tank. Even after they nerf it, they're not touching the DPM, which is all I cared about. So, incredibly strong on the AT-15. Let's make our way back over to the questions. Let's see. What do you do in situations when you're a medium and your whole team abandons the medium flank? Well, I've actually been waiting for this question because I made one right here. So let's go to Oasis Palms. Oasis is a very good example to showcase what I would personally do. So let's say this is you and that medium, as you said, that all of your team ditches you, they decide to all go town and they go this way. So if your team's going up here, what I would suggest to do is literally just camp in a bush. Turn your tank into a tank destroyer. A smart team on Oasis Palms goes towards the Oasis part. I mean, that's where I go because you have gun depression, you have easy spots in the town. They don't have gun depression unless they're staying back here. And at that point, you're kind of useless because these tanks can just drive up here and use their gun depression. So basically, if the enemy team has an advantage of sitting here, the best case scenario I could give you is two options. A, is you just drive your tank. Instead of actually going here at the beginning, you just put your tank in this bush, and you are now a tank destroyer. You are a medium, you've got good spotting range. Let's say you're a light tank as well. You have really good spotting range, so you can get some very good spots all over this area here, which is really good. As well, let's say you don't spot anybody coming over here, or you decide that you don't want to do that, you can as well push really quickly over towards base 1. Obviously, enemy tank destroyers are sitting in this vicinity. That's where yours would be sitting as well. I mean, that's just common sense. So, the best way to counter the enemy is if you want to clear their tank destroyers very quickly, you flank into their spawn, and you clear their tanks before they have a chance, and then you're on a tank and hit point advantage. It's tricky, but it works, and it can pay off certain times, even if you have a really, really bad team. Hopefully that helps you. Let's make our way back. Why do you think Wargaming refuses to buff certain tanks that are clearly underperforming, or have had far better counterparts for a long time? Example 140, M46 Patton. Yeah, I don't actually know the answer to this. Wargaming is wasting their time on certain buffs. I mean, if we make our way over to the 8.5 changes, there's a lot of buffs. I mean, vehicles like the T-54 Lightweight are getting changed, the LT-432, the IS-3 is getting an aiming time buff, but the questions that I don't understand is why vehicles like the Object 252 are getting a buff, why vehicles like the IS-5 are getting a buff, or the SU-101's getting a nerf. Those things make no sense. The Tiger 2, Wargaming is changing for no reason whatsoever, and it's a waste. Why change something that doesn't need changing? It's already one of the top performing heavies in the game, and now you're going to make it broken because you want to have class identification, which is stupid in my personal opinion. Sorry, haven't had a drink of water since I've woken up, so my voice is kind of... But yeah, really, it's stupid. I don't understand Wargaming's thought process at all. There are vehicles like the Badger that are at tier 10 that just suck. And sure, they've buffed its speed, but that's not the issue with the Badger. Easily, anybody that's driven the tank can tell you it is the aiming time added on with the on-movement dispersion. The Object 140, they buffed the 60 to 5 to 7 degrees of gun depression for no reason. There are many examples of tier 10s that just sit back, like the E4, and they watch the other vehicles get buffed and buffed and buffed, and they sit there and they just kind of huddle into their corner and realize, okay, Wargaming doesn't love me. The reasoning I have behind this is I don't think Wargaming wants people to go down certain lines. I think they've realized, why do we want people to buy a Badger and possibly not like it when we can have them buy an AMX M454? That's my only reasoning behind it, because it makes no sense to me as a business tactic why you would want to not sell more collectors, right? I mean, the Badger, the AMX 30B, they're both way underperforming, and why not buff them? More people would buy them, but that's on Wargaming. Really, I don't have a reason behind it. I just think they don't care to buff certain tanks because they don't think it'll be worth them in the long time. What is your opinion about Wargaming's new balance approach? Well, that's literally what we were just talking about, so that's perfect. Which will now balance tier 8+ tanks off to their classification rather than their in-game performances. As I said, I think it's stupid. They're buffing tanks to something that don't need buffing. Why change the Tiger 2 to become a vehicle that doesn't need changing? It makes no sense. Oh no, the Object 252, it is not an aggressive enough tank. We must buff the attack accuracy. No, it makes no sense. Like, there are certain vehicles I agree with. The VK100, that makes sense. This tank sucks on its dispersion. You know, that I just don't even get. Oh, yes, let's nerf it by 1 millimeter of pen. The Carnarvon, I sort of understand. I mean, it's an underperforming tier 8. Same for the Centurion. This one I completely agree with. But I don't think Wargaming should have buffed the DPM by 400. It's going to become now one of the strongest tier 8s in the game. Chieftain, I agree with. You know, the AT-15, I do think it actually needs a nerf. After playing it with a friend, I mean, we streamed a quick tournament at tier 8 where we just demolished in 2v2s with the AT-15. But certain things I don't understand. I don't know why they would want to change the AMX 5100. They're going to make it way more. They're going to make it slower on acceleration and traverse speed just so it can bounce shells in the turret, which is not what the tank is meant to be. It's meant to be a mobile, auto-loading heavy tank. It has hit points, it can drive like a medium, and it hits like a truck. That's the whole point of it. Why would you want to play the AMX 5100 now if you can just go pull out an Mil 1951, which is better in literally every aspect? Example B, the P44 Pantera. I'm so pissed to what they're doing to this tank. Basically, what Wargaming has done is they've removed 10% of its overall acceleration on every aspect. Traverse speed is getting 10% worse. And what they've done to make the vehicle quote-unquote better and more adaptive for its playstyle is add literally 10 millimeters to its upper plate. We can see that right here. Upper plate right now is 134, and if we look at the upper plate now and angle it here, it's about 160. I mean, sure, they buffed it a little bit, and if you're using full gun depression, you might be able to get some bounces, but it's not supposed to be an armored medium tank. It's supposed to be a super fast vehicle. The whole reason you'd play the Pantera over the Progetto is the fact that it has the mobility. And they've just taken that away. What's the point of playing it now? I'll just go play a Panther 2. I mean, it's so irritating to what Wargaming is doing to certain vehicles. And, I mean, obviously I agree with the VK45. It needs a buff. But vehicles like the Tiger 2? Why? Why would they ever think that's smart in any way, shape, or form? Personally, I believe that Wargaming is a headless horse. They don't know what they're doing. They have no clue how to balance certain vehicles in the game. I mean, certain they're doing fine on, but then they just nerf and balance others to make them different from when they were already very different. P44 Pantera, what does it need class identification on? It's already a very unique tank. And now they're changing it to be a weird tank that doesn't have a fit playstyle. It's going to have that auto-loading gun, but it's not going to work as well because you can't get out that damage in certain scenarios where you would have been able to before. I'm not angry, I just don't understand why, but why? That's a perfect way to say it. So, yeah, that's a pretty good question, and I'd love to ask Wargaming that themselves, but they'd probably never give me a straight answer anyways. Hey, Wargaming, it's pretty nice of you making it... No, Wargaming, did I say hey, Wargaming? What I meant to say is, hey, Droodles, it's pretty nice you're making a Q&A. My questions are how to enter a professional comp clan and how to convince clan members to participate in more comp. Well, to get into a professional competitive clan, obviously, it's usually down to statistics. Really, if you want to get in, even if you're a really good comp player, you got to show your worth. So if you're averaging very good win rate, 70%, 3,000 average damage, that is how you get in the professional comp clans. If you're trying to get into, let's just put on North America for an example, because that's obviously where I take part in comp. You've got clans like Joker, you've got clans like Rain, Pramo, Pincer, Void. These clans, I mean, just for my clan alone, the requirements are 70% with around 3,000 average damage. So if you're not meeting these requirements, they're not going to let you into the clan. And playing on the comp team's even harder because you need to make sure that you are consistently doing well. They'll obviously have tryouts, but yeah, it's very, very hard to get into a professional comp team. You usually, what I would suggest to do, what I did when I was trying to be good at comp back before YouTube took off, is you want to get into the feeder clans. Let's say for clan A, there's usually clan B and even sometimes a clan C behind them. A good example of this is Pramo. They have Pramo, then they have Purple, and way back there used to be Floop. And basically what you had to do is you had to get into the original clan, which was Floop, and then you'd have to work your way up to Purple, and then you'd work your way into the main Pramo team. Pincer did that as well. I remember back when I was in Pincer, the clan was called like Rice or something. It's always a feeder. That's just how they do it. I mean, Void has Nova. You want to get into Nova, and then if you wanted to get into Void's main comp team, you make your way up into Void. So that is how I would say if you wanted to get into a professional comp team, the best way to do it is work your way up through the ranks of that professional clan. Join the clan that's below it, prove that you're good, and maybe you can make a word for yourself out there, then make your way up in the ranks. It's very, very hard as comp is a very, as it says in the name, competitive scene. So we'll do 3 more questions because this video has been going for 21 minutes already. So let's make our way back over here. Why is Wargaming giving 2 PBR models to a single tank and why not a whole line? Well, marketing is a good way to word it. They're obviously giving them to premiums because they're premiums and they want to sell them. Why do you think they give it to the Chimera? Why are they giving it to the WC-120? Because they know that those tanks are going to sell more already because they are kind of broken, and if they can put PBR on them, maybe people will buy them even more. But when it comes to tech tree tanks, vehicles like the T-54 Lightweight would be a good example. The reason they're giving that tank PBR is because they are adding the new Russian light tank line. So they want that tank to look all shiny and sparkling when they add the T-100LT, the LTG, and etc. into the Russian light tank branch. Well, it turns out my phone alarm wanted to go off at 3 a.m. I have that normally set for Fridays because I like to wake up when new tanks usually come into the game. It's 3:30 a.m. for me when they are released, so it gives me time to get my voice straightened out so I can record. But yeah, I probably should turn that off as today is not Friday. But back to what I was saying, yeah, the real reason I think Wargaming just gives certain tanks PBR, the IS-7 and not the whole line, is because they want people to get the IS-7. They want them to play it because A, it looks beautiful now after the PBR. I cannot deny it. And as well, because it made the tank so much stronger. I don't even know if Wargaming intended on doing this, but they made the armor so ridiculously broken now on that tank, or not even broken, but troll, that people are using it in comp. I still prefer my lovely IS-4, but it is a very, very meta tank, and you will see them rolling around all over the battlefield, especially in NA, when that does roll around the corner in just a few days for the Blitz comp. So, yeah, that's how I feel on PBRs. Why do you think that we get so few credits for selling a tank compared to what we need to spend in order to fully upgrade it? Well, there's one answer for that. Wargaming wants your money. I mean, it makes sense. It's like the Mr. Krabs needs money, money, money. Ah! They want your money because when you don't have enough credits, what is your number one option? A, get a premium tank, or B, buy credits. And credits are one of the worst conversions in the game. While experience may seem like it's annoying to get, credits are a heck of a lot more annoying because experience you can earn on the vehicle that you are playing. Credits you can't. You have to play a premium. So if you want to get that experience on that tank and you also need credits, you have to play 2 separate vehicles an X amount of times to get that one vehicle researched and purchased. It sucks. I hate it. That's just one thing that really sucks about credits. All right, final question. Actually, this one's here a good one. What's WN7 and what does WN8 or what does it mean? So if we make our way over to 30-day overview for me, basically what WN8 is it's every one of these values added together. So it gets your average tier, your survival rate, your kill ratio, damage ratio, spot rate, average damage in battles, and it just mashes them all together like a salad. And then it says this is your overall score for these values added together. So you get certain points for certain things. So I personally don't like WN8 too much. I think it's a stupid system because, sure, I mean, if you're a really good player, you'll always say super unicum. But there's also times where you'll do very well in a tank, like the M6O, 3,000 something average damage, and you'll only have blue WN8 because the average player is doing so well in it. That I don't agree with. I think that WN8 is something that you should use as a very loose form of knowing how good a player is. I never look at WN8. You should never go look at somebody's WN8 and be like, huh, they're blue. Because what you should look at is their average damage, what tier they're playing in, and their win rate. Those are the most important things. So that would be my suggestion. WN7, I have no clue. Honestly, I really don't know what WN7 is. It's a bunch of different parameters that are shoved together. Never use it, ever. WN7 is the most useless thing. I've never seen any comp plan ever use it or even know what it means. So that's just my advice on WN7. Hopefully, all of you enjoyed today's video. This was a long video. It's like 25 minutes. So if you'd like me to do this in the future or continuing answering the questions, because there are a lot of them down here, and I bet a lot of them are very good, obviously I would like to break into them into the future. But hopefully all of you enjoyed today's video, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye!